Now, for the record, not all crystals are created equal. In the world of division, crystals have a variety of spectrums of light, right? So different crystals do different things. I definitely remember the day of taking any crystal that I could find and throwing them all over the body, not really even being mindful of the color pattern or anything, and just seeing where we go. And there was a lot of wild experiences. But when you get into the art, let's say, of working with these gems, you understand that the chemical that is their makeup, right? Like, because there's a chemical, what you're calling a chemical compound. Right here, of course, is the four elements, as I brought up before, that this chart is basically, in ancient times, they just called this the four elements. Now we've broken it down into layman's terms, and now we've shown you all of them now. And these are the chemical compounds that are actually utilized in order to make these crystals, right? Through different age, time, pressure, heat, cold, all sorts of agents acting on it. Now, obviously, the big benefit of crystals in that sense would be that they're capable of storing specific energy patterns. So you could get an energy pattern from 2,000 years ago and bring it back into this time if you can kind of boot up the crystal, right? And what all this leads to after a while is like, okay, so what do I do with that? And why would I do that? And what does it look like? Like even with the understanding of metamaterials and being able to cause an interface between, or antenna interface between a human body and a pattern and a design. But then it still needs a programmer. Like, what are we going to do with it? Crystals are in themselves a perfect conductor. They're like filters. They allow these specific energies that we're working with, like the far infrared and the pulse magnetics, they allow that to actually be configured in a certain way, because that's why crystal geometry is so important. Right? So there's 7 different types of crystals. We've talked about that. They have 7 very specific, like orthorhombic, etc., specific kind of geometric fields around them. And that geometric field meshes perfectly in with the spectrum of life. Right? So when crystals are being utilized, their first benefit is they are in themselves antennas, so they can take energies that are being pushed through them. Like, let's say if we're firing electromagnetics through a quartz crystal, it's going to take that field of light and it's going to carve that field of light into the design of that quartz. We now know that the crystal antenna is governed by the geometrics of the crystal, and this is data already recorded. You can find the geometric pattern of any crystal. It's not like, oh, this is a pseudoscience or anything like that, right? The next thing is that crystals, when they're under pressure, they then push out the chemicals, the geometrics, the essence, and the energy of their composition, right? And we call that piezoelectricity. It's the way those old lighters used to work. To get that spark, it would just hit the crystal, bam, and the crystal would spark, and then that lights the lighter, okay? So just to understand that crystals are not only conductors and generators of power, they also are capable of shaping and molding different powers. Okay? So generally in the crystal world, and it doesn't always work this way, but the actual color of the crystal and its geometric pattern become the most important to determining what does that really work with. There are for sure some universal stones like citrine, selenite, I believe that is, the white stone that's a bit soft that you can also eat, right? So those are some universal stones that even don't need to be cleansed. But when you're getting deep into just to understand the spectrums, obviously like amethyst corresponds to this, right? And this is also the outer layer of your body. So just so understand, like we're not just this up and down thing. That would be like we were just these good or bad things. That's not how it works. It's all in itself mirrors of itself. So anything that is on the top is also on the outside. So the electromagnetic field around the human body is actually really, really loving amethyst, right? Pink amethyst, purple amethyst. Man, amethyst was my first crystal. And generally, there's more amethyst. Obviously, there's more amethyst in the world than maybe other crystals because everybody got a piece of amethyst, right? But each piece of amethyst connects into that amethyst vein. And I think pretty much because it's so abundant, it has a lot to do with this topological aspects of us. Right? Because those other crystals that you got to go deep in and mine, those are the more rare crystals. So then we got to look deep into the body to see, okay, yeah, this crystal right here is more tied into this. But to put some type of real measures around it, right? You're looking at the geometric shape, and then you're looking at the color. And if you're deep enough, you're looking at the chemical. And then that's giving you this works for this. So if I want to send something through that crystal, like far infrared or pulse electromagnetics, that's a way for me to send energy through it and push energy out. Or if I put pressure on that crystal, which is what orgone does, especially if you have good resin, when I put pressure on that crystal, as that orgone is drying, that's why they put the coils in the right place, right? So as that orgone or that resin is drying, it's tightening up around that crystal and it's squeezing that crystal. That's how orgone works. And then when it squeezes that crystal, at a certain point, that crystal gives off some electrical field. It starts pulsing, and it's supposed to pulse then into those coils that you create with copper. And then you should have it then exposed or like tapped or terminated. It's because it's still electricity. So that's why when I see, or it's electrical current in a certain way, a circuitry. So when I see certain technologies and the circuits aren't connected, like if they show like a board and they're saying, oh, this board, and I got a few technologies, these patterns and all this stuff on the board, right? And all these geometrics and maybe even sometimes cymatics or whatever, but none of the circuits are connected. And it's like, this can't work. There's a certain level of resonance, but it can't work to the potential of the field that you're looking for it to do because there's not any amplification. There's no driver. So there are things that when you're even looking at spiritual technology as an electrician, you could be like, that wouldn't work anyway. I know that your belief would work better than that, basically. And that's how it would really be. Or then you could craft something. If you craft something as a replica identically to us, the human temple, it will do miraculous things. There are things in this world that there are beings that had taken time, humans that have taken time to actually perfectly understand the pattern of life and then create something that to the best of their ability emulates those patterns. And those things will always heal. Those things will always do miraculous things and strange things. Okay. So as we keep going, now we understand why crystals work this way and also why you got even, of course, hot stones. Right? It's an extremely deep massage, right? Where it's literally removes your inflammation, your stress. The stones just suck all of it out, right? And then also the electrical systems coming off crystals, it's piercing deep into the marrow, right? So it's not just getting the bones, it's getting the marrow.